Well, hello, and welcome to Working Lunch, the SLO Chamber's weekly series where we get to sit down with our community leaders and bring back some of that connection we've been missing during these challenging times, and maybe get to learn some new things. I'm Jim D'Antona, President and CEO of the SLO Chamber. Today, you'll get to sit in on my conversation with Visit SLO CAL CEO Chuck Davison. Chuck hit the ground running in this role when in 2015, he led the research, groundwork, approval, and implementation process for San Luis Obispo County's first countywide tourism marketing district managed by Visit SLO CAL. Chuck's passion, drive, and results-oriented approach has steered several key initiatives, including the launch of their new brand, expansion into the international markets, and the addition of new regional flights for the first time in 10 years. With a start in the Las Vegas lodging and gaming industry, his 25-year career in travel, tourism, hospitality, lodging, and management has included leading national marketing and sales teams, an international nonprofit organization, and most recently as vice president and general manager at Expedia. He led the opening of the local expert division across North America. Chuck is recognized throughout the state as an industry leader and serves on the executive committee and board of directors for California's tourism advocacy organization, CalTravel. And as a member of Visit California's CEO Leadership Council, is on the board of directors for Destinations International and New Life Church in Pismo Beach. I'm so looking forward to talking with Chuck about the tourism industry, how lodging businesses throughout our county are adapting, and to learning a little bit more about the path that brought him to SLO. Thank you for being here, Chuck.
Hi, Jim. It's good to be with you. I appreciate the opportunity to spend some time with you and the community across SLO CAL today.
Yeah, it's our pleasure, and we're glad to see you here in SLO. I know you've been moving and grooving throughout the entire nation, working on travel. But so as we sit down to lunch, first and foremost, where are you zooming in from today, and what's on the schedule for lunch?
Yeah, today I'm sitting in our office right here in downtown San Luis Obispo, just off Mark Street, and you know, it's great. Our team's been back in the office since June 1st, and obviously, like everybody else, we made some tremendous cuts to our staff, and so we're able to do it socially distant. But I've got 14 members out today that are up in North County visiting our partners and being out in the community. And lunch, I'm gonna have a great salad this afternoon from one of our local partners here in the county.
So great to have you here. And so right out of the gate, the question you've probably answered 1,000 times at least, you know, what do you say to locals who are concerned about the impact of visitors on public health and the COVID-19 outbreaks in light of this crisis?
Yeah, I get that question a lot. And as a resident, you know, I'm equally concerned, right? We call this beautiful place our home as well. It's not just the place that we work. And my wife is concerned as well, so I get to answer for that one too. So, you know, for us, we've worked really hard since the beginning of this outbreak, working with the county, working with Dr. Bornstein, you know, making sure that the measures that were put in place were going to provide a safe path, not only for the visitors who are coming, but also for us as residents. All of our lodging investors, you know, we're unique in this county in that 80% of the lodging investors here are small business. They're mom and pops. And so they live here in this county. And so those people that own these hotels, you know, all throughout this destination, they're also residents, and they want to do the right thing, not only for keeping their employees safe, but keeping their visitors safe as well. And so I'm really proud of our industry. They've taken a leadership role throughout this entire process. And to date, there is not one outbreak reported from any lodging establishment inside the entire county. And I think that says a lot about how much they care about this destination and the people that live here.
It's so interesting that the fact you brought up there about 80% of our lodging partners here, you know, they're locally owned. They're neighbors of ours, and so they're not looking to change that. So one of those things, how are they and how is Visit SLO CAL kind of supporting that healthy visitation that we're getting?
Yeah, you know, we hired a new chief marketing officer back in January, and so that's been an interesting introduction for her. Her name's Lisa Verbeck. She ran the marketing team at Tourism Australia. I think one of the really interesting things about that is, you know, Australia has, I think, 7 states. You know, we have 7 municipalities, so she got the kind of, you know, push and pull between, different destinations, but she's been really on the forefront of, helping change our marketing strategy to adopt with the pandemic. And so if you were to go on our website today, you would see, a plethora of photos of people in masks in different type of environments, right, that are helping to sell and educate. If you're going to come here, please respect our home. Please follow the rules accordingly. Please make sure that you're being safe. We led the charge with the county on the ultimately failed Start Guide initiative that they had put before the governor, but of the 13 different industries, we led the process on 4 of them to assure that we had the right people at the table developing the right measurements for the guide. And even though that wasn't ultimately accepted by the governor, the majority of those recommendations have all been put in place locally by our industry to assure that safety is occurring. We rolled out an open and safe toolkit that we pushed out across the entire county to make sure that, individual businesses, not just lodging, but restaurants and wineries and attractions, all have the things that they needed, in order to help be successful in this, challenging time as well. So we're really pressing into that space. We're communicating in the blog posts and the things that we're pushing out that people really need to respect the destination when they come here and, keep it open. We won't stay open if we don't do the right thing.
And so one of those things that you're kind of talking about, and as you talked about that Start Guide that you were part of and working on the state level, are you working closely with the Visit California, our state tourism agency? And if so, can you tell us a little bit about their strategy and some of the initiatives they're leading or that we're working with them on?
Yeah, as you mentioned, I'm really, in your introduction, I'm really fortunate to sit on the Visit California CEO Leadership Council. So there's 101 CEOs in tourism destination organizations like ours across the state. There's 15 of us who meet 4 times a quarter. We just actually met in Huntington Beach last week. So Carolyn Batetta, the CEO of Visit California, along with several of my counterparts, got together. Visit California is really focused right now. One, it's important for people to understand that Visit California is a division of the government. So that's the California Office of Travel and Tourism. Carolyn reports into the governor, takes her direction from him. And so the things that Visit California are doing are being vetted and benchmarked, through the governor's office and through the state health department. So that they're not out just doing things on their own. They're following the guidelines as well. But their focus has really been to hold advertising until consumer sentiment for travel rises. Right now, based on yesterday's report that just came out, only 52% of the residents in California are willing to travel. And so if you think about advertising to people in that stage, you're throwing away 50 cents on the dollar before you even start the process. Now that's coupled by, unfortunately, this week, a huge outbreak in fires across the state, which really changed people's mindset. A week ago, even our destination was a great place to be outdoors. Today, depending on what part of the county you're in, maybe not so much. And so when we think about that, we really have to be cognizant of the things that are changing on a moment by moment basis. And so we're really leaning into Visit California and following their lead. As they start to advertise and open up more, we'll do the same.
So, obviously a lot of us have seen, a lot of visitors coming to our area, which is fabulous. Can you tell us kind of right now what type of visitors we're welcoming right now? Where are they coming from? Where are they staying? How long are they here for?
Yeah, it's been really interesting to see. We had done some benchmarking early in May. We paid Oxford Economics, one of the largest research companies in the world that we work very closely with, to develop a 24-month forecast for us on what was going to happen to the travel space. And they projected that we wouldn't get back to 60% occupancy until March. Interestingly enough, we just got our our July numbers 2 days ago, and we were at 60.4% for the month of July. And so, we're seeing a lot of compression, especially in the beach communities, as the Inland Valley is hot and people are looking to get out of places like Los Angeles and San Francisco and into places that are less dense, where there's more open space. Our beach communities have really done well this summer when we didn't think that we would have any visitation in the middle of a pandemic at all. So we're seeing a lot of visitors from the Central Valley, a lot of visitors from big communities. One of the challenges that's creating is, we traditionally try to market to what we call a high value customer, somebody who's willing to come, stay longer, and spend a lot of money. And that's not necessarily the customer that we're seeing in the market right now. So we're actually seeing more people in the market today than we would this time a year ago. And that's mostly driven by, we have a lot of day trippers coming into the market from the Central Valley, and we have a lot of people who are coming and staying with more people in a room than, let me say, they should. So, rooms have an occupancy limit of 4. We're seeing hotels on the coast with 6 and 8 people in the room, and that's creating some compression issues as well.
And so, yeah, in looking forward at that, does that give you any concern about, where the tourism market's going, or is this just kind of one of those things like, this is a blip during this time because this is all we can do? Or are there some ebbs and flows here that you're seeing that might cause, negative things in the market?
Yeah, I think a little bit of both. I mean, we're all, reading about, and if you live in a coastal community as I do, we're seeing the challenges that are occurring with the trash on the beach and the things like that. And what can happen with that is we bring this higher valued customer back into the market. If those things aren't addressed and taken care of appropriately, that customer can really get turned off to this place as a destination and say, hey, that's not somewhere that I want to go anymore. And so we really run the risk of, brand harm, for both, SLO CAL as an overall region, but also individual cities. And so we're working really closely and pressing in with our coastal community cities to see how we can help, how we can, continue to help message. Our work is to get people to the county, and then it gets picked up by the local municipalities and their tourism groups. But that's not going to work in today's world. We've got to extend it past that and be communicating to people once they're in market, just from the challenges that are faced. Now, with that said, there's a big question on, what does leisure travel look like over these next couple of months? As September and October come to a close, which is traditionally the end of leisure travel season, we have a tendency to rely more in the travel space on business travel and meetings and conference. Business travel is probably not going to happen this fall, and meetings and conferences definitely are not going to happen. And so what does that look like for the travel space? And at that same time, you could have banks that are calling in loans on hotels and other establishments that, for debt that needs to be paid. And we run the risk of kind of a perfect storm in that space occurring if things don't maintain. The upside on that is, the customers who would traditionally be traveling internationally can't travel internationally. And so they're looking for destinations that are different than where they've gone before. So we just launched this PR initiative with 25 major publications across the US that we're working with on a kind of European vacation scenario for the Central Coast. You can come and enjoy the wineries and enjoy the outdoor space and all of these things, and trying to, move people from where they would have been going to where they can go today.
That sounds like a really cool idea. And I think you really could get a lot of those similar things as we talk about, what we have here and what you might have gotten as you travel in Europe. I think in one, I'd like to include like a question that came out of the Facebook Live was, and to the point you were making is, 80% of our, hoteliers are local. Does that make them more susceptible potentially to, a closure, a bank, or calling in the loan versus the big guy? Or are big guys more willing, or sometimes more willing, to just bail early and take off? So, and I know what I wanted to get into is your past in the leisure industry and hotels, but kind of your thoughts on that locally.
Yeah, I think, there's a couple of fortunate parts here. I mean, even our larger local lodging investors who have 3, 4, 5 properties, they're working for the most part with local banks. And so those banks are equally invested in this community, and they want to find a way to make that work. We don't have a lot of partners. We have some partners that have 8, 10, 12, 16 properties that are based in Southern California, but have a dominant presence here and have leadership living in our market, and they're probably vested with larger banks. But I can tell you, I mean, I was with a hotel partner. We were doing a site inspection on Wednesday on a remodeled hotel here in San Luis Obispo that just reopened last week, and they were saying, hey, we're looking to invest in additional properties. So if you hear of anything that's coming up for sale, let us know. And that's a really interesting phenomenon right now in the middle of a crisis when travel isn't doing well. Overall, there's been no industry that's been more decimated by COVID than travel outside of healthcare, right? I mean, healthcare has obviously been the most impacted, but travel has been right behind it, whether you're talking about air service or hotels or restaurants or, you know, just leisure in hospitality in general. So I think for the most part, our hotel partners here are here because this is where they want to be. It's here because this is what they want to do, and they're going to find a way, whether it's through private or public investment, to pull through and make it work.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to summarize it, and I think that's how I would see it too. So one of the things that's interesting, we talk about visitors coming from locally and around the area, and I know we had a similar experience of being a visitor to SLO before moving to and working here. So can you share us a little your story and what your background is?
Yeah, you know, I love that scenario because we talk about the economic ecosystem, and we work it like this. You know, if you build a place that people want to visit, you'll build a place that people want to live. And if you build a place that people want to live, you'll build a place that people want to work. And if you build a place that people want to work, you'll build a place that business has to be. And if you build a place that business has to be, you'll build a place that people want to visit. And so it's this ecosystem that, you know, everything starts with a visit. You don't choose to move to a market. You don't choose to open a business in a market, you know, unless you've been there as a visitor. And so for me, you know, I grew up in Las Vegas. My family's been in Vegas now over 90 years. My great grandfather moved there from Texas to be a foreman at what was Boulder Dam and is now Hoover Dam. And so have a long, you know, history there. I didn't grow up thinking I would get into hospitality. My father is a developer and builds, you know, big buildings and hospitals and stuff like that. And I worked for him for my first few years in college and really thought I would get into the construction industry. And he said, you know, absolutely not. You're not doing that. And so go do something else. And so I was fortunate enough every year, Mirage Resorts, which at the time was the largest casino company in the world, now owned by MGM Mirage, they would select one student out of UNLV to go into a management associates program. They ran out of qualified candidates. They picked me. I got the opportunity to go work for them, where I spent the first 10 years of my career, but the first 4 was really based in learning every single aspect of the business. I worked in every department except engineering and finance over the course of a 4-year period to really get trained to learn how to, you know, grow up and ultimately run a casino. And I worked my way all the way up. I went to work for a guy named Carl Icahn, the 40th wealthiest man in America. I was the VP of marketing and sales for his 4 properties, 3 in Vegas and the Sands in Atlantic City. And at 29, the youngest VP of the history of the company. And by 32, I realized I didn't want to work in the gaming world anymore. And so I left there and I did a short stint of 5 years in nonprofit, kind of redeeming my soul for working in gaming. I jokingly say my title was VP of Marketing and Sales, but my title was really the person who's supposed to take as much money from people as humanly possible before they get out of the building. You just can't put that on a business card. So went to work in the nonprofit sector, and then after 5 years, took a couple months off, and it was during that time that I got recruited by Expedia to open this brand new local expert division. So the local expert division is the division that sells all of the activities, everything you can do in a destination when you go there. And so they hired me to run the North American operation for them. And that was an amazing opportunity and a really fun and great job that I did for about 5 years. And when I left that, we were in Vegas and we had been visiting here since 2006 and always thought we would retire in Pismo Beach. And I came home and looked at my wife and she said, "What are we going to do?" And I said, "Well, what if we just move to Pismo Beach?" And she was like, "What are you going to do in Pismo Beach?" And I said, I don't know. I'll figure it out. You know, I mean, I can always go back to Fortune 500. I mean, it's, and so we literally 2 days later got in the car and drove to Pismo Beach and found a rental. And within a month had our house up for sale, our U-Haul packed. And we were living in downtown Shell Beach, 4 houses from the ocean. And for a boy who grew up in the desert of Las Vegas, 4 houses from the ocean is pretty sweet. And so, you know, it was great. You know, we moved our kids here. They were super young. You know, got them adapted. It was honestly, though, the worst 2 years of my life because trying to get acclimated, I didn't know one person in the destination and I didn't have a job. And I had just turned 40. And so trying to walk into a destination I was a player in Las Vegas. My family's been there a really long time. I was in the industry for a long time. I still know a lot of people, but here I was a nobody. And this is a hard community to break into if you're not here, because of work or because of something else. And so I had some great people like Noreen Martin, who really helped out. Mike Manchek at the EBC introduced me to a ton of people. And that led to me, doing some contract work for this former organization to help get their initial district set up. And as I went out and got all those petitions signed from the hoteliers, I got a chance to sit with great people face to face and, talk to them about who I was and what I was doing. And, ultimately, a couple months before we passed the district, the board asked me if I'd step in and be the CEO. And now I've got the greatest job in the world. So.
It really is an amazing story. I love it. And obviously I've heard it before, and I love that you shared it. And it really does talk about this community about, because a lot of people come here with this it's the place to visit, but then you're like, how am I going to break in? But people do, and they figure it out, and they really do. But I'll say for you, using your experience and knowing kind of what you've done, you've really been a catalyst. So for so much of the impactful flight development work that's happened over the past few years. And kind of hearing your past, I certainly know that I understand how you did it, right? From knowing all these pieces, but also you're kind of just going to do it and we're going to figure it out. How have those past successes set up to weather this pandemic?
Yeah, I'll start by saying, I'm really fortunate, and I know you'll recognize this as well, Jim, that we get to be the face of the organization, and so much credit often is given to us, and really it's the team behind the scenes that's doing all the work and pulling these things together and make it happen. I'll take credit for the vision and the drive, because we don't, to your point, we don't give up. We will just figure it out. But we have such a great team and loyal group of lodging investors who are really helping drive and push these things forward. So for me, as we look at the success of what needs to happen and how we maintain it, I think, it goes back to what your organization is founded on. It goes back to relationships. I tell people all the time, look, don't wait to develop the relationship until you need it. Because it's going to be too late at that point. I mean, the reason we're successful even right now in working with the local government in the work that we're doing is because we've been working with them for the last 5 years, and they trust us and they know that we're going to be valued. And so I think as we think about how we continue to press through, the relationships that we built with the airline's a challenging space right now. But I'll tell you, the airport is doing extremely well in the face of this adversity. The airport's performing in the top 10 non-hub airports for passengers every single week. And so when we think about, American Airlines, it was in the Tribune yesterday, American Airlines on Wednesday morning announced that they were cutting 15 markets across the United States, just getting rid of the service. And fortunately, we weren't in that mix, right? And so we continue to push in to our partners at United and American and Alaska. And, we really believe that Kevin and I had a plan from the very beginning. As long as we didn't lose service to a market, we can grow the service back. And we've been fortunate that in both Dallas and Denver, we've maintained the service. We lost some service between LA and San Francisco, but we still have multiple flights a day. And we know that we can go from 2 flights a day back to 5. If we had gone to 0, it gets really hard to get back to 5 because if they're not here, it's hard to start them here again. We see that in Santa Maria where United was expected to launch, right? Now they've pulled all service out and they're not launching. It originally was a delay. Now they're not launching at all. So, we're going to continue to really push into those relationships that we have. And, again, because our market is already outperforming what the forecast was, we're in a really fortunate position with those air carriers to see more service come back soon.
Yeah, it's amazing for what you're talking about keeping those connectors, right, to Denver and to Dallas Fort Worth, because that keeps us being able to go to the East Coast. And then for our businesses, what we are so thankful for is that helps them keep doing business. So, great work by your team to build those relationships and do that work. So kind of as everybody is kind of moving and changing, and all the tourism industry is experiencing right now, there's an opportunity to rethink and reimagine the standard way of doing things. So do you have some thoughts about what it would look like for the conference center or hotels or the way individuals travel? And have any of the sacred cows been slayed during this time?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. The hotel space over the last probably decade has really come a long way. It's really evolved. It used to be you'd check into this standard kind of hotel and every room looked the same and the lobbies all look the same and the stuff they did. And now you've seen just this innovation of, Marriott having 18 brands and, starting to create these new opportunities and things. So one of the things that's come out of this is, there's this whole conversation of what does it look like? So I was in Huntington Beach last week and it was amazing. Even at a Hilton, right, they're telling you in advance, check in online, don't come to the front desk, check in through your app, get your room key on your phone, so those advancements were already starting to come, but this whole move to a touchless environment is being pushed big. In the hotel that I was talking about, the San Luis Creek Lodge that I did a site inspection on the other day, they already have in their room what would have traditionally been the resort guide is gone, and they've got a QR code, and now you're picking that whole resort guide up on your phone. And so that move to touchless is going to be advancing. I think one of the challenges that creates for the industry is the hospitality industry has always been face-to-face. And so how do you maintain the connectivity with that when you're trying to move everybody into a mobile, scenario? And that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. In the conference space, Business Insider had published a big article back in June where they featured Hotel SLO on the new conference space that they have that opens up to the outside. And so we're really seeing this push where conference space will now be a scenario where those doors. I was in Green Bay a couple of weeks ago, and they're building a brand new conference center in downtown Green Bay next to Lambeau Field, and the whole front of it is glass, which all opens up onto a giant patio. And, for places like ours, that's an amazing opportunity because we have amazing weather. I mean, I don't know how that works out in Green Bay, honestly, other than maybe 3 months a year, but, that's for them to worry about. I think there's some really great things like that could help propel the industry forward in a new and different way than it's ever been thought of before. And, I think we're seeing in hotels, they're getting rid of things like throw pillows and throw blankets, and all of that stuff is going to be a thing of the past. And they're really talking about how they make it a tight and clean environment, but not stale. And so I think that's going to be something that the brands are really going to have to press into. But I think there's some exciting opportunities. With every challenge, there's an opportunity, right? And so how do we take advantage of it?
Yeah, it's so interesting in the QR code. That's a really interesting piece that, again, as you try to think about creating that experience in the hotel room, as we've done in restaurants and menus. So a really interesting way for people to adjust. And
we were talking about, everybody thought the QR code was dead, right? And then COVID. And now the restaurants, the hotel, everybody's using QR code to get. So.
If you think about it, it's been really interesting to see when you do the QR code at the restaurant, you can change your menu daily and not have to throw out and reprint and do all that stuff.
Yeah. Why weren't we doing that before? I mean, honestly.
Yeah. People apparently just didn't want to press the button to do something, right? I mean, it couldn't have been the only thing. So unfortunately, we're already at a half hour, and this has been a really great conversation. We always end kind of with this question, and we'd love to get your thoughts. What are you looking forward to this weekend besides maybe breathing non-smoky air?
Yeah, well, I've traveled 4 out of the last 6 weeks. So, first of all, I'm looking forward to being home. Really great that we live here and not somewhere else. I'm going to start my normal Saturday. You can find me almost every Saturday morning walking the beach in Oceano. It's really beautiful right now. There's nobody down there, and so there's plenty of open space. I'm going to try to get out and do some supping in either Avila or Morro Bay. So I'd love to, get out on the stand-up paddleboard and spend a little time outside. I'm getting ready to start a new book, so I'm looking forward to reading that. And then my 16-year-old daughter is car shopping. And so, got the car shopping thing that I got to squeeze in there at some point as well.
Oh, it obviously it's better than traveling, I think, but it still sounds like a busy weekend, but it sounds great. But before we go, I do want to say you just said you've been traveling the last 4 or 6. So you're on a plane, you're seeing it. The process working seems like we're getting, that they've figured it out on travel.
Yeah, I think they're doing a really good job. MIT released a report about 3 weeks ago that talked about the cleanliness of planes, and it showed that if you were traveling in a plane, you had a 1 in 4,500 chance of getting COVID. Your chance of getting COVID in the grocery store is 1 in 100. So, I think the thing that people don't realize about planes is they use the same air circulation system that hospitals use. And that air is processed through there at a really fast and consistent rate, and everybody's wearing a mask and they're doing the right thing. And, the planes are getting defogged in between. And so, it's, I think that they've done, in the light of the adversity they face, they've done a great job. I think, for me, it's really about, I believe this is what the world, sorry to say this, but I believe this is what the world looks like for the next 12 months. And so, we have to keep our business moving, and, just personally, even in getting out to see family and stuff like that, you got to keep doing it. So we're taking every precaution. We're making sure that we're wearing masks. We're making sure that we got hand sanitizer and we're washing our stuff and taking care of it. But, the world has to go on, in my opinion. And so we're going to keep pressing forward and trying to do great things for our community, because we believe SLO CAL deserves greatness, and that's what we're here to try to deliver.
Well, I think you're doing amazing work, and you and the team, thank you so much. But thank you so much for actually being with us and spending the time today. I know you're super busy, so thank you for eating lunch with us. And really do appreciate, sharing this idea, because there's a lot of things people want to know about, and a lot of it focuses around the things you're working on. So thanks so much.
Great. Thanks, Jim. Great to be with you.
For everyone else, thanks so much for eating lunch with us. We hope to see you next week when we're joined by Megan Souza from Megan's Organic Market to talk about San Luis Obispo's first cannabis retail store. If you have an idea for a future working lunch guest or someone you want to learn more about, send us an email at slochamber@slochamber.org. We thank everybody for tuning in. Have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you next week.